How you doing, young fella?
Okay, I guess.
Any for your thoughts?
Well, it's a long story.
But a familiar one, I bet.
Older than the hills.
I've been there, my friend. I've been there and back. You know, I see the way you're sitting here, and I see the way you got your hand around that little shoe, and that's all I need. I know your whole story.
You do?
Absolutely. I know exactly what happened to you.
What?
Well, I'll tell you, friend, what happened was you and your brother-in-law, Bernie, you cashed in your stock certificates and your insurance policy, and you went out and bought a dry cleaning establishment. Now another place opens up down the street, and it's charging less. And they're getting the stuff out faster because they got more help. It's not your fault, right? All right, so Bernie comes to you. He says, I want you to buy me out. He says he's fed up. Well, your kids are growing up. You never see them. And all of a sudden, they're turning into juvenile delinquents, and your wife is saying to you, listen, you care more about this lousy business than you care about me. And the equipment breaks down, and your sister moves in with you because that jerk Bernie, he went and joined the circus. Well, you had it up to here, right? You didn't know what to do. So what did you do? You did the only thing you could do. You dumped the business for a soul. And who did you sell it to?
Who?
You sold it to that jerk down the street, that slob that had been burying you for a year. Then you took whatever money you had left, and you sunk it into the glass slipper business. That's your story, my friend. Not a happy one, is it?
You know, it's amazing. You are 100% wrong. I mean, nothing you've said has been right.
Oh, yeah? Well, how about this?
I hate to be rude, but we're trying to do a movie here.
Oh, yeah? Oh, I didn't know that. Gee, I'm sorry. Listen, one thing, son. Would you like to buy a watch?
No.
I remember even, like, posting one of his videos, because I hadn't seen a lot of people talk about it when I left the church. I was like, check out this guy's stuff. He's got to be like my favorite YouTuber in the whole Exmormon sphere. And he commented on it. He's like, thank you. In his nice Jonathan way. And I was like, holy shit, you're awesome.
So I didn't know him, but I was kind of away from the scene for a little bit. I stopped paying attention to the Mormon scene for a while. I don't know when, a little bit after, I guess probably around the time that we had our falling out with Lindsay Hansen Park. We were pretty close with Lindsay Hansen Park. I mean, I guess I'm already doing this, but I might cut it out. But like, she talked to me all the time. She ran, I mean, almost as much as we're talking now with Jonathan and all that sort of stuff. That's how much Lindsay talked with me.
Oh, shit.
And all the way through from the start. I grew up, it's kind of like 5 houses downish from her, but it was around a corner. She was younger though. She was my younger brother's age, but she'll admit, and it's part of it was because of that age thing, that she had like this, her and her friends had like a crush on me, you know, that sorts of stuff. And so they'd always kind of like follow me around and kind of googly-eyed girl stuff.
Yeah, the beehives and the priests.
exactly type of stuff, because they were my little brother's age. And she started talking to me all those years later, and I'm pretty sure I introduced her to John Larsen. And I'm pretty sure I was standing right there, me and Flip were standing right there when John Larsen and John Dehlin met in person. We were at the live event at the University of Utah for Mormon Expressions, and John Dehlin came in, and that's when he introduced himself. And at that point, when he walked up, and it was a little bit like if you and I were meeting John Dehlin, because Larsen was critical of Dehlin in a snarky way. And so
was he really?
Like, yeah. So, but he was critical of him for trying to be too friendly with the Mormons. He'd be snarky. He'd rip on him. He'd make fun of him. He'd joke on him.
That's what I want him to be. Like, I like the people. There's, I guess, just like define what you are and stick to that. Or at least if you're going to change it, then say that you're changing it. They try to pretend that there's something that they're not. And like, yeah, you need your infants on thrones where they'll rip on the church and they're funny and they're dicks. But then like, you need your what John Dehlin originally was. Like, he just interviews people. That was the whole point of asking Carah that question today. It only gave me 150 characters. I was just going to do $2, but that only gave me 50 characters. That wasn't nearly enough. And I didn't want to do $20, but I wanted to sort of compare, because my comparison is always Meldrum and Brian Hales. Because Brian Hales has some like absurd shit about polygamy. He knows a lot about it. He's a smart guy, but like then he draws the dumbest conclusions ever. Like it's always like, oh, well, we don't have it completely written down and documented that he had sex with these other wives, so he obviously didn't. That's basically what he tries to lead you to believe. And he said to John Dehlin one time that, like, people say he got the revelation to restore polygamy after his polygamous wives, but like, what? He's the prophet. Why does he didn't need revelation to restore baptism, so why would he need revelation to restore polygamy? I was like, well, because he wrote a whole book saying that was evil. And anyway, that's an absurd thing. And John Dehlin gave him some pushback, but it was like, okay, but like, can you see that the critics might say this? It was very like a reasonable thing to do. That's what an interviewer is supposed to do. Like, and then on the Rod Meldrum one, he's just like, oh, I feel super uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot about both of them. I mean, John Dehlin wasn't exactly my cup of tea before he got excommunicated either, but I listened to a lot of it just because it was there and it was content. And at that time frame, there was nowhere near as much content as there is now. And so I'd get through a lot of those episodes too, but not every one of them by any means, because sometimes
I'd say there's still the same level of good content though.
Yeah, well, but I mean,
there's more content now, but like it's less proportionately good.
Speaking out of turn for Flip, because he's not here, although he's coming. I'm pretty sure I remember Flip from the start saying, "Why is John Dehlin there?" in any one of the John Dehlin videos. You'd get real frustrated with, like, even when he was totally fine, totally cool, totally whatever from the beginning, Flip was like, this guy really, grinds my gears. He makes me bored. I don't like the stuff he says and talks about. For me,
it's boring for sure.
I thought he was fine.
Like the long, like I like long form, but like he'll bring on somebody who's like, oh, I'm a general authority's son or something like that, or Todd Phillips. Oh, I got the second anointing, but then you'll have to hear like his whole life story and for like 4 hours. I'm like, I don't care about that, but I get that's his style. That was just annoying to me from a creative perspective. Now it's annoying to me from I don't know.
Every Exmormon wants to talk about their whole life story anyway, too, though. But that's why Mormon Expression, they try to come up with a separate second podcast that Flip even put his name in to be the host of, and Flip also put his name in to be the follow-up host, John Larsen, when he looked for a new host, which I guess it was that Austin, whatever name, and him and his brother or some sort of have major followings on TikTok now. The guy who followed John Larsen, I forget his freaking name, but he was real boring. But he was boring. He was also talking about being nice and reconciling with the Mormons a whole lot. So maybe he was just boring because of that. But it just was kind of dull. But the second podcast that he tried to do was, I just want to there's so many different Mormons who want to come on and tell their whole exit story and whisper, they're all kind of the same. Instead of doing it on this podcast, there's just too many of them, so we'll just get this whole separate podcast and we'll do it and make it like an archive, and people can go listen to those entire things. And I think they did start archiving them a whole lot. There's this lady named Heather who was doing it. Me, Flip, Heather, and this other girl who were working with Mormon Expression. It was us who went and met up with this pastor that Flip knew, because Flip was a regular appearer on this regular radio program. He was like Flip the atheist who would call in to this Christian radio program and talk with him. And so he was invited over during Mitt Romney's election. He was invited to a meal in Utah to sit in the main table. And so he brought me and the host of that show to go sit at that table with that Christian pastor who was there for Mitt Romney's super PAC or something like that. And we sat at the table, and that was the night that the guy got up and gave a prayer and then sat down. And I asked him, why didn't you give a prayer for Obama? He's like our president. Like, don't we want him to do good? And he got back up and he's like, give me a second, and gave a little bit of a prayer for Obama too. And I was like, oh, that was weird.
That's something. Yeah. I feel like if that happened in
I was kind of like
17 on the other side, he'd get up and be like, in the name of Jesus, fuck Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, there's part of me that was like, even if, like right now, if I prayed like that and all that sort of stuff, I can't stand Biden and all that, but I would sure pray he wasn't a dunce or that he could not do stuff stupidly to this country. But I mean, the guy got back up and did that. But I'm just saying, this is like some of the stuff that we go back with Mormon Expression. Lindsay and I would talk back and forth, and the day after Trump got elected, Lindsay and I went and had dinner, and we started talking about it, and we were totally cordial. And I was outraged. I was shocked that Trump got elected, and I was like, "What the heck just happened?" And then she, of course, was giving her narrative that it's because everybody hates women so much.
That's why I voted him for sure. Like, I was like, I don't like this guy very much, but I think he really hates women. I don't think about anything else.
Here's the whole difference. Here's what happened. In that meeting when I was sitting there with Lindsay, not a meeting, I mean, we were just having dinner, but she was talking to me about the stuff because she always kind of filled me in the Sunstone and feminist Mormon housewife stuff. But I was able to say this. I was able to say, nah, I don't think it's because women hate. You know, that one sentence right there, you know, just between friends, hanging and chilling, talking, everybody saying their opinions. I was able to say the sentence, I don't think it was because of that. Oh, you don't? Blah, 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 blah. Well, I think so. Well, I don't. Okay. A year and a half later, those same sentences would have been, you know, worth ripping each other's heads off or calling each other out on the Facebook, screaming at each other and you know, tearing each other down, that sort of deal.
It sort of resembles what happened to the phrase "not all men." How that's like the feminist battle cry now is, oh yeah, they'll like make a claim that just is a complete generalization of men, which sort of implies all men, because they'll say, you know, men are sexist, patriarchal pigs or whatever, and then you'll be like, well, I mean, I'm not, and it'll be like, not all men, is that what you're saying? Okay, like, if it bothers you, then it applies to you. That's their whole workaround of that.
Did you watch Carah's thing too today, or which feminist casually dropping man hatred are we commenting on right now?
That's where we started, and we can go back to it. He might have been referencing it too, but yeah.
I just wanted, because like I just watched the Carah's response to John's whatever that was, and
State of the Union.
Yeah, but just casual drops all this, like, you know, oh, why, like I would take orders from an old white man.
Yeah. There was a couple like
when she was saying
things. It's funny because I, like, right after she got done bitching about capitalism, I gave her $5 to answer my question.
Well, when she was saying in that stream, she's like, what part of this makes you think I would take whatever sort of orders from John Dehlin, a man? I'm like, every part of that. Yeah. All of that. Like, that is what makes me think you would do that. You know, but
well, have you seen her TikTok that she took it down? It's the one that New Name Noah jumped on, and
I saw
so
it.
Terrible.
She talked about it in the thing today. She referenced it.
Yeah.
Like she stands by it. She defends it. She thinks it's really, really funny. Which, like, by Carah Mormon Stories standards, it was the best piece of comedy ever. But you know, it's like,
it wasn't that unfunny. It's not that it was unfunny. It's that it was.
Yeah, no, there was a joke there for sure. There was a satire.
There was a joke, but there wasn't. It wasn't actually a true joke because, like,
let's deconstruct the joke here.
Deconstructing the joke
so
is where
she had a couple different ones that I know pissed off New Name Noah, and I think she's just talking about the one. There was one that was just a quick one, like, oh yeah, what a middle-aged woman, or I don't know, young woman or whatever, gets off work and says, hey, you want to know what I want to do? I want to bang John Dehlin. And like the joke is inherent because, yeah, that's dumb.
He's a dorky guy.
That's in bad taste because we know that's exactly what it was claimed in a whole other scenario.
Well, even if it's not in bad taste, it's also wrong. Like, it's funny, the delivery. It's making fun of John Dehlin, this, you know, dorky middle-aged guy. But then, like, I think it'd be perfectly funny of a joke, but it's like, John Dehlin is the rock star of ex-Mormonism. He could go get laid from he could go to any of those ex-Mormon conferences.
Plus, we know, like, a married mom with a bunch of kids, even if the old stuff never happened and this guy's making all this money and he's got this big name and fame. I mean, who wouldn't suspect that might be a temptation for some young lady? But just the simple fact that the other claims of Rosebud were out there, I just don't think that would be such a smart thing to do. And then the other one was, she tied herself up and it was like kind of in the dark and she was acting like John was off screen making her say stuff. and she was tied up and having to say, oh, something like, I don't know, he's got me tied up in here for a sex slave dungeon or something like that. And
yeah. You know, it's funny when you're talking about the reverse Gish-Gallop, the steel man gallop. And I was thinking about this, that like, because, and bear in mind, I maintain, like, I believe that John Dehlin is not guilty, but we literally have more evidence that John Dehlin is a rapist than Brett Kavanaugh.
yeah,
Which is a stronger case to be made.
But that's kind of one of my.
Okay, but my evidence for it is the same as my hero, Sam Harris, who said, and I quote, "What possible purpose would Christine Blasey Ford have to lie about it? I can't imagine me, this creature of robotic logic. I cannot imagine anywhere.
Argument is powed.
It's the same as the. It's the same as this argument I kept getting with in the ex-Mormon world with about the BYU N-word
the volleyball
thing.
girl.
How she kept telling, like, there's this one girl. It was in every one of those threads saying, "What could she possibly have to gain from this?" I don't know. She's getting retweeted by LeBron James. There's
her
that.
Grandma
I don't know. Maybe her godmother looking for
godmother.
office. There's that.
Her godmother
and has a history of doing
international news now, and she's running for, like, it's just, yeah, it's the simplest.
And has a history of doing the exact same thing or saying the exact same thing. I would always say that. Imagine Kavanaugh, who surely has different people working for him right now, secretaries or what do they call them, the paralegals or whatever, work under him. But there's some other name for the people who he's had something like 150 different young women work for him. That's one of the things that they'd always say is like, look, this guy's had more chance than any other guy to have some sort of like weird quid pro quo interaction with some young lady in this world, and all like 150 of them like got together and joined together and wrote like a letter like standing up for him saying, no way, this never happened, I don't believe it. But imagine one of those girls said, hey, I got a funny joke.
Yeah, I get
I'm gonna go do a TikTok right now. Oh, Brett Kavanaugh's got me tied up. Yeah, how would that go over?
It's very rare that I get like really emotionally angry about something. That Brett Kavanaugh thing like pissed me off, especially the arguments.
That's where I
arguments
turned.
against
That's
him.
where I turned 100%. That's where.
Oh, that was bad. So one of my favorite ones was the whole he was crying. They're making fun of him for crying.
Yeah.
He'd be like, oh yeah, this guy really didn't do it, and he's sitting there losing control and crying. He's the most hated man in the world, and like as soon as this is over, like he's still going to be considered a rapist by like half the country, a gang rapist. So of course, like who wouldn't cry?
So that was Dehlin's argument. That was Dehlin's argument for why he felt that it was obvious that he was guilty, because he got emotional. And guess who got emotional when there was accusations against him? So by his own logic,
John gets emotional over like dumb YouTube criticisms. He just went on that whole rant yesterday about how there's a lot of trauma. I have a lot of trauma. Shut up. People are mean to you on Facebook. I don't care. It's not trauma. That word needs to. You are a psychotherapist. Quit using that word unless it's necessary.
Like, listening to the whole John Dehlin thing, I just wanted to be like, John, I got good news for you. You don't have to do it. Like, you're in a high demand religion. It's chewing you up, you know, like, because the whole thing where he doesn't even notice he's doing it, where he's talking about, he just says the progressive and or post-Mormon podcast space.
The good people are the progressive people. He said that.
No, there's post-Mormon, progressive, that's a political
I'm pretty sure he said progressive first, too.
How many people have kind of come and gone or never even entered the kind of progressive or post-Mormon content creation business. So brutal. And this is the list that I came up with. So why is it hard to succeed in the progressive or post-Mormon content creation or activism space?
Yeah, no, and he said it a few times. And like Carah did the same thing in a different way, where she tips her hand, you know, where she did the thing again, where her Church of God and Church of the Devil are the people with empathy and the people without empathy. And, you know, She
so our
he kept framing it as fighting injustice. He's like, when you're fighting injustice, a lot of people get mad. He's shut up. Come on. You are the king of the humble brag.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just funny because like John Dehlin sounds like a typical Mormon going like, I just can't deal with all this anymore. And John Dehlin's advice to that Mormon is, well, quit. And our advice to John Dehlin is quit. You don't have to be a progressive religious wonk. You don't have to be Mormon. You don't have to be a wokey wonk.
It's so funny because some of our first podcasts, maybe our first one ever, most of what we talked about is we were teasing out how Dehlin and Carah would always, maybe not care so much, but they'd always try to announce that they were neutral. And maybe John Larsen goes a little bit out there, but I'm kind of progressive. And he said, and so we would kind of tease out and show in their sentences and their usage that no, look, they're not neutral at all. They drop all these like little hints all throughout it. And it's not even hints. I mean, they're kind of bringing over the head, but now it's not even hinting. It's just, they just say it right there,
Yeah.
Well, they'll say it. And then like later they'll be like, we're neutral. Like John Larsen will spend an entire podcast shitting on Republicans and right wingers and then be like, and I hate the Democrats too, by the way.
The Democrats also do bad stuff.
Okay, name one.
Well, sometimes when people leave the church, they become QAnon. That's we pointed them out doing that twice, where they act like they're about to like give us something the Democrats do bad, and they immediately say something like that, just a complete non sequitur.
Is that a thing that happens? Like, I'm sure it's happened, because of like Murphy's Law. But how many people have left Mormonism to become QAnon? That is not a large sample size. There's no way.
Exactly, but it's way back in our past.
Anybody in real life. I don't think I've met anybody in personal life or even like online. I mean, because I haven't gone to a QAnon circle, but like just out in the wild, run into somebody who's actually pushing QAnon.
I know one, and he doesn't push it. He'll kind of whisper it to you. And guess what? He's a much better guy than John Dehlin is. He's just a good dude. He's just one of the best dudes around. He's an old, he works in the car place. He works and he does all this sort of stuff. And he's been around helping his family, being there for them his whole entire life. And here and there,
that used to be an archetype.
They have the ultimate Mott and Bailey, of like, what do you got against protecting children? Like they just get to fall back on that. But
that used to be like an archetype, like a person that you could be and be around is the wacky guy.
He was Dale from
Dale Gribble.
King of the Hill.
It's a guy that believes that everything's a conspiracy, but he's a member of your community.
He's there for his family, no matter what. He shows up to work every single day.
Raises
John shirt off his back, which is
ultimately one of the many
ultimately
ways that show was wonderfully subversive in that, like they were demonstrating the ideal of tolerance.
Yeah.
So the great American conservative Texan ideal of even if you disagree with people, it's okay to get along.
Yeah, that's Hank and Bobby's
tonight. Our plan tonight was to get into a reverse Gish-Gallop, we were calling, because we got Gish-Galloped a little bit about the terrible things that MAGA are, because our last episode, Jonathan was good enough to signal boost it up on Mormon Stories, and so it got people talking about it and seeing it, and then giving us their Gish-Gallops of all the terrible things about MAGA. And it's just too long to even do on Thread, so we promised we'd be doing a reverse Gish-Gallop. But the reverse Gish-Gallop is I have a goal with it, and my main goal is this is how high the bar is. I'm not trying to convince anybody that Trump is great and you should have voted Trump, although I think you should be able to see that if you only have two choices. But the bar is Trump voters aren't ontologically evil. That's the bar. That's what we're dumping to here. And why do we have to do that? Why do we have to do that this week? Because we had a whole big long Hitler speech. I don't know if I can say that word now. It's so censorious. We had a great big optically terrible speech from the current president of the United States demonizing a whole voter base. But this is what I've been saying for a long time. Has been going on with most of those people that, even your silence is violence. So say something or shut up. But if you shut up, silence is violence. You have to signal that you're part of our tribe or you're just a terrible person. And signaling part of that tribe is that if you voted or even apologize at all for Trump, you're just a terrible person. we can make the case very, very easy. I think we can make the case that Trump was probably the better choice between the two. But I think you're perfectly fine if you know everything we know and still say, I still side with Biden. And I'm not going to say, well, then you're ontologically evil.
Yeah.
I know.
No, it's
You-
like 'cause
you
my
can-
whole issue is like, if somebody says I voted for Biden or Clinton because, like I'm willing to hear that argument. But like, because I had this problem going back to 2016 where they said we can't vote for Trump because he's got shady foreign business entanglements and he's got a bad history of treating women who are accused powerful people of sexual assault. And I don't even remember just a whole list of things. And like,
I would hate to
why
elect
is
somebody that did that.
yeah, like or like that whole exactly. Like, so it's like I'm with you on the not Trump. I just don't understand. Like, given the list you gave me, how are you voting Democrat? That's where I always get hung up. Is like lots of conservative Christians said like, yeah, he doesn't represent all my values, but I'm voting for Trump because. Whereas as far as I can tell, down to a person, every Democrat I could get to talk to me about this just plain outright denied that there's any corruption to see on the left.
Yeah. So you guys see the screen all right? Or
Yep.
Nice.
so I've got a longer list, but I actually found a better one over the other thing. But the reason we say it's a Gish-Gallops is we're gonna rapid fire through some of this stuff. But tell me if I forgot anything. I even came up and heard a couple more and I don't think I had time to write them down. Hopefully I remember them. But I'm just going to talk about Biden since we're talking about Biden right now, because I've got this other list somewhere else. But Biden, let's just go about some of the things that we know about Biden that are true. One of the other issues, and one of the things we're going to point out of our reverse Gish-Gallop, is there's a list like this of Trump of things that are not true. The Scott Adams hoax funnel that he has, and I have a picture of that here somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you guys can think of any or say any or pop up,
just off the top of my mind, what cracked me up was because for 4 years, part of the mainstream line about Trump is, he doesn't care about American politics or America or people. He's only in there to enrich himself. And then 4 years later, all the newspapers bragging, investigation shows Trump organization lost money during presidency. And it's like, it reminds me of anti-Mormon, ex-Mormon criticisms of Joseph Smith, where it's like, on the one hand, he's a super brilliant mega genius, or he's like just a bumbling idiot, and they want him to be both at the same time, depending on what's more convenient at the moment. And they have this problem of like, oh yeah, Trump is only enriching himself the whole time, and he's so bad at business he lost money.
You know how you spot a fascist?
Tell us.
A fascist simultaneously always believes the enemy is super strong and super weak simultaneously, because it has to be. They always have to believe that they're much stronger and more intelligent and more beautiful and can conquer their enemy at any time, but they also have to believe their enemy is always out there ready to get them.
And the arguments are just about it. Like the examples they use are just about as bad, because like the one with Joseph Smith, I will tell people when I'm not like an ex-Mormon missionary. I don't try to recruit people, but when they want to talk about it, I'll tell them why. And Joseph Smith is a big one. And they'll say like, well, how could an uneducated farm boy stop? Joseph Smith was a genius. You have to stop pretending that he wasn't an absolute genius. And they'll be like,
a brilliant creative person produce a lot of things?
Yeah. And then the one example they use, and they use this in a lot of Mormon media, is the time where Emma's scribing for him while he's translating, and he asks if Jerusalem has a wall, and they're like, he didn't even know that Jerusalem has a wall. And I was like, do you know when I learned that Jerusalem had a wall? Was watching that right there. I didn't know anything about like Jerusalem with I guess if you would have asked me, I would have assumed probably, but I didn't know that. Like, that's not a. So, and the things with Trump are just about the same. Like, he's racist. Oh, how do you know that? And then first they get mad at you for even assuming that they could possibly be wrong. They just sort of assume that's not a possibility. And then they'll tell you, they always give you the same stupid Charlottesville, good people on both sides. And I'm not talking about the Nazis, but they cut that last part off.
They didn't even, the Fine People hoax, like it's worse than a lie. It's the reverse of reality.
And remember, Biden used it in his commercial for the starting of his campaign.
Every single Democratic candidate, I heard them repeat the fine people lie. And it was a direct backwards lie.
Somebody confronted him on the trail. They confronted him with the Scott Adams like hoax funnel and said, you know that he didn't say that? And he just goes, no, he said it. I saw it with his eyes. Bulging veins, bulging arms, the bulging angry Charlottesville boys.
Mr. Vice President, are you aware that you're misquoting Donald Trump in Charlottesville? He never called neo-Nazis very fine people?
No, he called all those folks that walked out of that, they were neo-Nazis, shouting hate, their veins bulging.
But he said specifically that he was condemning them. He did
not. He said he walked out and he said, let's get this straight. He said there were very fine people in both groups. They're chanting anti-Semitic slogans, carrying flags.
But you're aware that he
was like, you could tell he's just kind of repeating the talking point.
Can we declare that the fine people hoax is the facsimile number 3? It's the scroll of Abraham of anti-Trump apologetics, where it's like, no, you've been proven wrong. It's a fraud. It was a fraud from the beginning. He never said it, and everybody that reported it was at worst or at best journalistic negligence, journalistic malpractice, and at worst just plain repeating a propagandistic lie. And that's like, and this is one of those things where I hate, where it's like, Democrats are so low that they're making me defend perfectly odious people like Trump, and it makes me feel ooky.
So China just approved for Xi to be president for life, and Trump says, maybe we have to give that a shot someday.
Like, enough is enough. How do people ignore that?
I'm pretty sure he was joking.
Joking about being president for life?
Yeah. If you listen to the audio, everybody's laughing. They're clearly in on the joke.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you like Donald Trump?
No, I think there's a lot wrong with the guy. It's just this happens not to be one of those things.
I cannot believe I work with a Trump supporter.
What?
Let's get out of here, Jenny.
I voted for Hillary.
Did you hear about this?
What did he do?
Donald Trump banned an entire religion.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Muslim ban, so I guess Trump is banning all Muslims from coming here.
And he's probably going to kick out the ones that are already here.
Actually, it's not a ban against all Muslims. The travel ban is against 7 Muslim-majority countries.
Yeah, but unemployment's at 4.1%. Trump isn't shutting down Meals on Wheels. Only 3% of their budget comes from the federal program.
No, Mom, I agree with what he said about Donald Trump. I just don't think it's appropriate to say it at Aretha Franklin's funeral.
Are you serious, Gary?
Oh, I don't agree with it. It's like, if you're so concerned about terrorism, then why isn't Saudi Arabia on the list too, right?
Why the are you defending Trump?
I'm not defending him. You guys are just misrepresenting him.
Trump is not as bad as Hitler.
Okay.
Who put this here? And who took my lunch?
Actually, LGBT categories have never been on the census, so no, Trump isn't removing them.
How much are the Russians paying you, comrade?
Wait till he comes to our place of business and starts collecting our Muslims and getting rid of them too.
Hatem and Ali are American citizens.
And that makes it okay?
What? No.
Holy shit.
Oh my God.
I didn't know you were a white supremacist, Gary. You know, this isn't even our floor. Let's just get the off.
Look, he didn't fire Tillerson on Twitter. Tillerson already knew. Trump just leaked the information onto Twitter. Please, stop making me defend Donald Trump. Where's your tiki torch, Pepe? God damn it.
But that's where we're at. I can't believe, I'm sure you guys are the same, that here we are 5 years later and I'm even having to sit here and make this stream. I can't believe I'm on this side of it, really. But
yeah, me too.
But
but Kavanaugh absolutely was my left-wing break, where I'm like, okay, like, no, you guys have completely, you are morally bankrupt. Totally morally and intellectually bankrupt. That's where that was the Kavanaugh affair for me.
So I'm just going to share this real quick. If you want to hear 2 people actually debate Trump, Dave Smith versus Sticks on Trump's legacy, you can listen to people actually debate Trump who don't have TDS, and you can see that there's plenty to complain about with
Yeah.
Trump. And this guy's a Trump supporter. He's not because he's going to vote for the Libertarian Party. He might even be the Libertarian candidate. They're not nuts about Trump. And you can still debate Trump and still point to all the stuff he got wrong and did wrong and didn't do. This guy's going to always kind of like compare him up against the ideal. And this guy's going to always kind of compare him up against what was real, what your actual other options were, which one of the things that drives me crazy in all debates is when people talk, they're comparing against the ideal when we don't have the ideal as the other option. It drives me nuts, especially in American politics. But
Well,
this is a good debate.
That's kind of the genius of this whole left-wing tactic is if you don't have to, like these guys can all debate it without TDS because they know their shit. But if you got a large group of people who don't know their shit, aren't going to learn their shit, all you have to do is prove to them that somebody is ontologically evil. And then, you don't have to prove it. You just tell them, you explain it through constant propaganda and lies and bullshit.
Well,
That's where the derangement syndrome comes from, is the proving to them and convincing them that they're ontologically evil.
Well, I don't know, but
exactly.
There's that Orwellian thing going on, that subconscious thing where people want things to be true. I mean, the last couple of weeks where it's like the left is suddenly pretending that the way high-level documents are handled is something of great concern. When for years they literally made it into a joke that anybody was still asking for what was up with Hillary's emails, which is still a fair question that we never got an answer to,
Well, what's funny about it is Scott added what they've been saying on his hoax list just for that other thing, because they had that Washington Post article come out saying he had nuclear secrets in there. And Scott Adams pointed out, like, this is the stuff, the hoax. We signaled it beforehand. We told you what it's going to be. He said it's going, well, I mean, we could actually just listen to him do it, but he's going to add it to his hoax list. But let's look at this hoax list really quick here. You got the Russia collusion hoax. I think what's so funny is
you mean the election deniers?
The election deniers.
Remember election denying being
one great big long election denial. And one of the things I always point out is that Matt Harris guy went on the Mormon Stories podcast to talk about Ezra Taft Benson and saying, like, this guy thought that his president was invaded by Russians or something like that. And then they wrap up the episode. They wrap up the episode saying, and did you read the Mueller report? Our president's taken over by Russians. And it's like, oh my gosh. But anyway.
You're a meme.
So Russian collusion denial. Did you guys ever look up the actual memes? Because one of the excuses they'll give is like, well, there actually was Russian interference. Yeah, but it wasn't Trump who did it. But have you ever actually looked up those memes? Those memes are a joke. Those memes didn't.
Are you talking about the Russian-made memes?
The Russian-made memes that are the actual interference that they spent about $150,000 on. They spent about $150,000 on them, and they're crap memes. I never saw one through the whole election, and they're just crap.
What I'm guessing, because I mean, even if they've surmised this, I don't think they care for us to know. But like, what I think that the Russian interference was, so the so-called Russian election interference was, it's the equivalent of like, because if you read the news, you'll hear like once or twice a week there'll be a story about Russian airplanes poking at Western air defenses, and like flying through contested zones, and it's something that happens constantly, and we do it to them constantly, and it really is just poking and checking, like, if we fly over here, how long does it take for us to get a response, and they're constantly adjusting their plans and their radar from that, just poking, but it's not an attack. And that's what I suspect the so-called interference was, and they say, oh, we have proof that the Russian intelligence posted shit on Facebook. But it's just all this dopey shit going both ways. So I really think it was just like him going like, what can we get away with, and not an actual operation, as it were.
It's two different things. One of the reasons like they had to kick that off right away isn't just to question the election, but it also made it people. If you listen to that Dave Smith debate, people get really critical about Trump not actually clearing out the swamp. Well, what that did is it made it for 2 years he couldn't even pretend to clear out the swamp.
Yeah, that's
because he had, it would have been called some sort of a obstruction of justice for him to start firing people. So it was like their tactic for him to, everybody will complain and say, well, one of the things Trump didn't do is bring in his own guys and he just had to keep the people around him. Well, that was one of the tactics of the Russia collusion hoax. He couldn't do it.
I haven't looked at the Russian memes since they can't, so I don't really remember him that well. But I think like I have this theory, and it's real time coming up with this theory that memes will save us to some degree because it's like this type of art that its sole purpose is to pass off information. There's a lot of flaws with it because it's short little blurbs of information. It doesn't give context or anything, but it's really, really difficult to fake art. Yeah. So like state produced art, and the best illustration of that are the Bloomberg memes. That's some of the funniest shit ever. It was when Bloomberg was running for president, Mike Bloomberg.
Oh,
and he paid I don't remember how much he spent, but he
tried to astroturf memes.
Oh, he hired people like he hired TikTokers to make jokes, like funny poning jokes that vote Bloomberg.
Memes were on multiple levels that you can't astroturf that shit.
No, I know, and they were so bad. I'll send you some of them at some point.
You are predicting exactly what the memes really are. Like, I'm gonna see if I can find them here, but just the exact type of drivel. You ever watch the TV show The Boys? And they have some stuff in The Boys where they're like, hey, look at all these memes that people are producing. And you can tell like the writers kind of just produce these quick memes to show. Yeah. And you can tell that like those memes are not memes that would become famous, popular memes. You guys don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, like just think about all of the shit from South Park and they just created as just a throwaway gag and has totally entered culture. You know, and they've even like when they talk about the creation of the character of Towley, and it's just completely stupid. And it literally was like they just needed basically a prop character, and Towley is part. You know, you want to get high? That's part of culture now. You're a Towel. But I mean, all the stuff that they just plonked into society, and like, and they weren't trying to create the memes. It's just because that's part of what makes them brilliant, genius.
This is one of
they're plugged into the social language in a way.
This is one of their vagaries too. Those memes were about 50-50 for Trump and Hillary. They weren't all for Trump at all. Like, here's one of them.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. Like I really think it was cyber poking. Like it wasn't a cyber attack.
That's not a meme.
It was a cyber rattling the locks.
You can kind of mass produce boomer memes. So that one up there with
that was pretty
Bernie's pretty funny.
I mean, it's just.
This wasn't even.
I don't even know what it means. I just like it. Oh, you know what? I was gonna say something earlier though about because like something that always cracks me up about like when Trump assassinated that Iranian terrorist general guy, and I watched everybody on the left wig out. And there's a couple of times in real life that like I'd hear people be like, Trump is out of his mind. You know, doesn't he know what he's doing? And I would just say to them, like put them on the spot like it was a book report, and I just say, name 5 facts about Iran right now. and obviously they couldn't, and which is understandable. Most people can't. I can because I'm an autistic nerd about this shit. But also I've learned enough to know I don't know, like
they're oppressed. That's one fact I know. They're oppressed by white patriarchal colonialism. So what else do I need to know?
They're on one of Trump's list of brown countries to ban people from.
The brown ban.
Yeah. Well, they're those Arabs, remember?
Yeah.
New York Times used to have an article. I probably can't find it now because it gets harder and harder to share and find that stuff the more you look for it. But they're just about, and it was only like 20 different memes like that. It wasn't like some super high produced content. It's a lie. It's just an outright lie. So there was Russian interference. The Steele Dossier.
You can say that about any election.
Yeah, the Steele Dossier hooker story was complete fabrication. Complete.
I'm not even familiar with that one.
You don't know the dossier? The dossier is where the piss story came from.
Yeah,
I know of the dossier that
Christopher Steele. And this is the thing that's funny about it.
I thought the golden showers were like a rumor.
The investigations really started from the Christopher Steele dossier.
No, that's what, because that's one of the things that I remember is I remember right away commentators on the right going, just immediately going like, come on, like, just, this is obviously stupid, come on. And then, you know, it took us 5 years for there to be a trial and a conviction and all that stuff, and now we know, like, oh yeah, it was always stupid and they always knew it was stupid.
And here's the kicker: Christopher Steele, who is a foreign spy for Britain, paid a foreign spy from Russia for the information, and Hillary Clinton's campaign paid for it after Jeb Bush's campaign paid for it. Jeb Bush's campaign did it first, but John McCain was in the middle of that somewhere too. They paid for it was foreign interference. It was foreign interference in the election. Woke projection never fails.
Yeah,
and that thing is where they kept pulling the FISA.
I know the answer to that.
You heard about the FISA warrant?
I know
stuff?
you guys know the answer to that when you point out that, like, you know, it's uncontroversially factual, everything you just said, that the Steele dossier was a foreign spy conspiring with the foreign government, and the Clinton campaign knew about that. The answer to that, the slam dunk rejoinder is, you watch Fox News.
Yeah,
slam dunk.
So it was based off of that Christopher Steele memo that they got most of their warrants to go and do all those things that they said Trump was doing obstruction of justice for, off of these fake warrants. And FBI guys even got caught and convicted for altering those warrants and continuing them, and these judges signing off on them.
And so this is the thing. It's very, 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 very obviously a fishing trip, as they say.
Well, we're in one right now.
And one that has been the whole time. And this is the thing and I've said this before, and it blows my mind. Because, like, and, you know, I'd like to ask them, but they don't talk to me anymore. But, like, do you guys really believe that if either Clinton or Joe Biden or even Obama got the same level of personal inspection, that they'd find nothing? And they found nothing. They couldn't even find tax irregularities.
And they still got busted for the crap they did themselves.
Like, I thought for sure, like, there's gonna be some kind of financial thing.
You remember when Rachel Maddow got his W-2s from a long time ago, and she was gonna bust them out, like, well, I've got them, and she showed them, and they showed that, it looks like he pays more in taxes than
breaking
Bernie
news:
Sanders does.
Donald Trump pays taxes.
That one made almost as much sense as when Elizabeth Warren actually released her 23andMe shit.
Oh my gosh, that was so insane.
That was the easiest move. She had a slam dunk against him. All she had to say is, like, he's an asshole. Fuck this guy. He's being a dick. He's calling me Pocahontas. That's mean. Which, I mean, it's funny, but it was mean. And then, like, but she's like, no, turns out I'm like 1/1000th Navajo.
The other thing is, like,
no, it's not even that, man. You want to know what it was? It was South American blood. She was one like 1,000th or something with her, and it said it was somewhere on the South American continent. It wasn't like Native American.
And it's probably noise. Apparently they update those things, because, like, my mom got one a couple years ago, but she's, like, just recently, like, got the update from new.
Yeah, they update them and alter them. Yeah,
and it's funny because, like, my grandma's nationality was German, but she's basically Slavic. She's, like, predominantly Slavic with just a couple of other things smattered in.
Mine came back super, super, super Irish. And over the years, it slowly goes like a little less Irish, a little less Irish, a little less Irish. But
my uncle did. One found out we're descendants of Rollo from Vikings. So then he immediately went and shaved off the sides of his head and grew out a beard and tied it in a knot because he's a dork. But, you know.
I mean, but I see, that's the thing. Like, part of me gets the kind of national identity thing, but also, like, I think partly because, like, I've always grown up, like, multinational and mixed, where it's like I also kind of like, it's how important is it, you know? Because, like, one thing is, like, you know, I know so much more about my patrilineal line just because it's the name I've got, you know. But I've got, you know, 10,000 great grandparents of every different kind that I have know nothing about just because I don't know their names, because I literally can't remember that many names, but I can remember my own last name, so that's easy.
Okay.
Only remember that,
One of the things about these, like, I don't know if you guys remember the bounties, but, like, it's just like these papers things. Like, there was more of these than we can even remember, where they'd suddenly make an announcement and the entirety of the news cycle would just lose their dang minds about this thing and saying it's for sure true and impeach him, kill him, impeach him, basically, which I saw on Twitter just yesterday for his paper stuff. Burn him, give him the chair, treason, treason, treason. I'm dead serious. That's all over Twitter. But they tried to say for a couple of days, people might not remember that, like, there was bounties, there was Russian bounties on the heads of U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan.
Story.
And it turned out to be a complete fabrication bullshit. Did not happen at all. None of it was
Well, I think
true.
what they're realizing is that there's nothing so absurd that the TDS people will not believe it.
Yeah.
Whipping the border patrol on
That's
horseback,
down here,
whipping
yeah.
immigrants. Yeah.
Well, that
Never
was
happened.
one of my friends at work came up to me when the whole Mar-a-Lago raid was going on at first, and he's like, "Did you hear about the raid?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Yeah, apparently he was trying to sell nuclear secrets to Saudi Arabia," and I was like,
Yeah.
"You just
That's
okay?
what
How
I'm
do we
gonna
know
have
that?"
Scott
He's like, "I
Adams.
don't know. I just saw." I was like, "How do you
I
just
got that.
immediately believe that about someone?"
I'll show you a clip from Scott Adams on that one here. Just in a second.
Okay, I'll quit
This
it.
is a total tangent, but I just had this image in my mind because like Mar-a-Lago's like a golf club and like country club too, right?
Yeah.
And I just had this like idea of like these wealthy people on the golf course teeing off, and like a bunch of spooks show up, and they're like, just carry on. We just have to monitor the situation, and then and then you have like the CIA guy or the FBI guy like interfering in the game, like, "Sir, you touched that ball. That's a 1-stroke penalty." What are you doing here? Do you have a warrant?
So do you remember the injecting bleach thing? He never said it. That's one of those things.
Oh my
and
God.
People always say that because it's some comedian said it. It's the
Clearly
same
just
thing
use
as
a metaphor. Like he's like, "Oh yeah, I mean, there's some
So the
chemicals
people
that we
who were
use, and
talking,
they could use
they'd
something
been-
like that."
They'd been talking for an hour and talking about strange things like that. It wasn't out of context. It wasn't weird.
Yeah.
It's what the guy's talking about. And he didn't say anything about injecting bleach. He didn't say the terms. That was like somebody else said it as a joke. It's the same thing as Sarah Palin saying, "I can see Russia from my backyard." That was never said by Sarah Palin. That was said by what's her name from Saturday Night Live, and then a lot of people just turn around and start believing that's what they said. He didn't say it. You can go, just like the very fine people call them Nazis. You can go read the transcripts. He didn't say the thing they say that he said.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's worse than he didn't say it, because he not only did he not say it, he specifically condemned.
Oh yeah,
He said
fine
they should
Nazis,
be
the fine
condemned.
people,
Yeah. And he said, "I'm not talking about Nazis and white supremacists. They should be condemned totally."
The injecting bleach thing, he just didn't say it.
Yeah,
It's
he
not
never
in
said
there.
that.
But he's talking about, he's like kind of regurgitating back sloppily some of the stuff the guys had been talking about. But those guys had been actually talking about COVID dyes with bleach and that sort of stuff. And,
I think the way he described it best was that from what was it on Tim Toolman, Home Improvement, when the neighbor would explain something to Tim and then Tim would like re-report it and mess it all up.
Yeah.
Like
And
that's
Trump's
what Trump
totally
is
that.
doing. That's clearly what's happening. Is that some scientist says something true and esoteric and technical,
and you can kind of tell he was just kind of doing it. He was kind of just doing it as transition to get into his other stuff. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. You guys are talking about, whatever. But the koi fish thing, do you remember that? There was all this hubbub.
The murderer?
No. There was that some lady murdered her husband, and they tried to blame it on Trump.
Yeah, they tried to say it was they took
for ivermectin. Yeah, but the lady actually was just murdered her husband and tried to blame it on that.
No, it was or hydrochloric. Was it? Because it was like some kind of tank aquarium chemical. It also happens to be.
Yeah.
And it was all.
They
fake.
tried to blame it on Trump.
Yeah.
But the koi fish thing, if you guys don't remember, there's a scene of him with the Japanese prime minister, and they showed some video of them giving him some fish food, and the fish food he has in a bucket, but it shows in the bucket that they got this fish food that they can throw out to the koi fish, and then it just looks like Donald Trump just takes the whole bucket and goes meh and dumps it, right? So then they back up and show more video, and they show that he dumped the whole thing after the other prime minister dumped the whole thing, like just followed in line with what the other prime minister did. And it was all the rage,
I do remember that briefly. I stopped really paying attention to that stuff because it was always so absurd, and I got so tired of having to look up the real story.
Yeah, that's where.
So then, whenever anybody would tell me something about Trump, like, "Oh, did you see this idiot just like dump fish food in the water?" And I was like, "Okay, but like that's probably bullshit, and I'm not gonna look into it." because I don't care anymore. But also, like, is that a big deal?
Yeah, no,
That's like clumsy.
It used to be that even if that was like an actual thing, that was the realm of tabloid journalism and like late night gossip shows. But the idea of like mainstream news running this stuff in any way is like that's a modern thing. I swear. Like I'm trying to think. Like, do you remember when like original Bush threw up at that Japanese dinner, and that was kind of big news?
Did you see that? Where the sorry?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead. So this is the video, but what for a whole 24-hour whatever news cycle, that's all the video showed, right?
Yeah,
so
what a jerk.
So
what a typical wasteful capitalist.
So it was cut from right here.
Yeah.
Look at Trump. Oh my gosh. And that's it. And one of the reasons like Scott Adams puts it on his hoax list is because he says most if you talk to like any sort of like leftist person who took in mainstream media news, they don't know the truth of this one yet. They still don't know it. The blue anoners that we call them. They still don't know. Yeah. They still go, he was disrespectful to prime ministers. And that's why Scott will leave it in there whenever he goes talking to people. Like, do you know about the koi fish? Let's see here. What was the last couple? Well, anyway,
the guy looked like he felt really disrespected too. Like they chuckled together.
So some
God
of
forbid
those,
we have world leaders doing that together.
Yeah, there's the whipping of the horse, which is actually just reins.
Yeah,
and
whipping the Haitian immigrants.
Hunter's laptop, which you could have seen Bill Maher actually woke up. What's his name? The dude from Meathead. Meathead was like, I hadn't heard about this. The Bill Maher clip of him saying it to those guys, saying, you guys didn't realize that we've been lied to about that.
So he's saying it's okay to have a conspiracy to get rid of somebody as bad as Trump. It's a little bit of a thorny question because once you go down this road, this is sort of where we are in this country. The other side is so evil. Anything is justified in preventing them from taking office. Is it?
No. You know what's not justified? Using armed violence to try to kill people in the Capitol. That's not justified.
Answer this question. Huh? Answer this question.
What is
was
the
it
question?
Appropriate? The question is, was it appropriate to bury the Hunter Biden?
You're talking about the press doing that?
He's saying that's what they did, and that is what they did. They buried the Hunter Biden story before the election because they were like, we can't risk having the election thrown to Trump. We'll tell them after the election.
And we know for a fact that that's what they did?
Of course. You don't
but
follow
I mean,
this.
saying you know for a fact that that's what they did. I don't know what they did.
I know, because you only watch MSNBC.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
The one about the whips was one where it's like, hang on. You think you went your entire life and you just learned now that American law enforcement carries whips like fucking Indiana Jones. Like that's just a normal thing. Like as soon as I heard that, and I'm like, they were whipping them. I'm like, wait, whips? Why don't they have whips? Like,
yeah,
but people just hear this and go like, oh yeah, like it's just like it just slots into their world. Like, oh yeah, cops carry whips. That's normal.
So this was Scott Adams calling out the hoax that's coming out about Trump has nuclear secrets and he's giving them to foreign countries.
I told you I was going to teach you how to spot the latest Democrat hoax. If I told you the Democrats are working with the media to develop their next hoax, what would you expect it would include? Number one, it would include an anonymous source, right? If you're going to do a hoax, you need an anonymous source.
The Washington Post article said, people familiar with the case. That's their source.
That anonymous source would be reported by whom? Either the New York Times or the Washington Post. Because that's how you get into a credible news-making entity. So it's going to be one of those. And then once the story comes out, it's going to lack detail, right? And it's the lack of detail that allows who? Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell, to tweet and go on television and say, well, this report from the anonymous source in the Washington Post, if he did this and if he did that, it would be terrible. So that's what you'd expect, right? That's what it would look like. And then all the pundits would come on TV and support it.
And that's what's going on with this current one.
That was 2 days ago?
That's the one of him saying that, it turns out he's for sure got some nuclear weapons and he's selling that stuff to, Washington Post released it, anonymous source. And I'm telling you, all over Twitter, I saw leftist Twitter saying, burn them down, give them treason.
And he goes,
It's treason.
if true, it raises yet more questions. See, they have to do the if true thing. So today is if true time. Now, the other way to identify.
One of the things like Scott's pointing this out is because he's been down this funnel 7,000 times since Trump. And part of it too is one of the reasons like I have to go, man, I don't want more Trump, is because you almost have to like put on this cap again 3, 4, 5 freaking times a week.
Oh god.
Because they come out with another, come out with another, come out with another, come out with another.
By an obvious Democrat media hoax is the timing. Kind of suspicious timing, isn't it? That the Mar-a-Lago document story started getting boring. You notice there were no new news. So it started getting a little boring, and right on time. Right on time. Boom. Story to renew it. Huh. How about that? So I'm going to call hoax on this one. Everybody agree? Yeah. This has every signal for a hoax. And in fact, this one's just funny because it's so obviously a hoax. So obviously a hoax. And I think it's funny that we even treat it seriously. Because this one hits the entire checklist, right? Am I wrong that you could have made this checklist in advance? In fact, we could make the checklist for the next one. We could do the next one. Make the checklist. Anonymous story. Trump did something bad, followed by media hits, followed by Swalwell and Schiff being the only ones who were willing to destroy their reputations, claiming bullshit. And the other part is that the legitimate Democrats stay hidden, right? So this is the phase of the hoax where the legitimate Republicans, the ones who still have an ounce of self-respect, they're not doing what Adam Schiff and Swalwell are doing. They're not getting ahead of the story like those guys are. They're saying, I'd like to retain a little bit of credibility, maybe for later.
I think he meant Democrats.
And so yeah, this one has just hoax written all over it.
But that's just another one. But it was just an endless time. But the other part of it, like he said, is the timing of all this stuff. They always do the timing. There's another thing coming out of like they're indicting Bannon right now, just like they did just before the other election. They keep like suddenly it's always this. Robert Barnes pointed this out. It's always the Southern District of New York, one district who doesn't even have jurisdiction over where he is down in Florida, and tries to like pull out charges up against him on something that nobody made any sort of complaint about, because they said that he stole money from the super PAC to build a wall, but nobody who donated any money made the complaint. It's pretty outrageous stuff, but it's just par for the course. It's just that, but that's all the hoax stuff. The Gish-Gallop on the other one, not all of it, man. I mean, we could do 7 hours on all of it, but the flip side of it is what is true of Biden.
I am President Bo Beijing. Bow before me, fat.
They really need to install a lightning machine.
It lends an aura of strength and credibility. I am the king, and you will fear me, Jack.
Dude.
Okay, he's a little unorthodox, but he's a reasonable man. This guy's MAGA man, and he lives under your bed. He steals your uterus and drags it back into the 1950s. Kill him on the spot, not a joke.
This is stochastic terrorism.
Oh, that's a bit hyperbolic, no. Only way to deal with Ultra MAGA, gotta show him who's boss. You gotta show him I'm losing my patience. Ah, come on, man. Help me, Jack. Come on.
Now do you think there's a problem?
I can't believe that Trump supporter set the president on fire. Do we step in?
He's fine.